Good morning and welcome back to Planner Craft. I'm Natalie and I'm going to be taking you through the second of our thank you videos. So today we're doing Chocolate Baroque. So I'm going to allow a few moments for everybody to join us and I'm going to go through what I'm going to do today. So morning Tracy. If you are watching, don't be afraid to say hi or ask any questions as we go throughout the course of today. So for those of you watching on catch up on YouTube, we are live, so this is real time and it's going to be slow to edited videos, but that seems to be the way that YouTube wants to go. They want to have more live content than edited content. So good morning Carol, good morning Jen, good morning Linda and good morning Jill. Okay, so today I'm going to be saying a little thank you to the wonderful Leslie and David at Chocolate Baroque, who have also pushed the streams, and if you want to share this to the Chocolate Baroque group, you're perfectly welcome to. I don't have access to Facebook while I'm streaming, so okay, so I've pulled out a few of my Chocolate Baroque stamps. And you'll recognise these two from their one day special at the start of the year. And I also have a little collection of Macintosh inspired stamps. Okay. So when I haven't been streaming, I've still been working on personal projects as well. So one of which is this little colour journal I've been working on, and I've been working with the distress inks and trying to build up like a colour reference guide for how different blends work. So you can see I have one here that is Clipped Flamingo, Speckled Egg and Bowered Wood. Morning in, and that's perfectly fine if you can't stay to the end. So if I flick through, you can see I've done stenciling, blending with blending brushes, jelly printing. I've even done some drawing. So this was with the Pro Colours onto jelly print. So you do get a really different feel to your pencils when you're working over the top of distressed jelly print. And then we have a bit more of a pencil work. So although I've got a little bit of stencil in the background, we've gone and actually worked into it and actually added shading. With any offcuts, I save those in case I want to add extra pages, so there's pockets throughout my little journal, as you will see. So we have little pockets in there, and then we have little tabs. And if I flick over, you can see that on the back I've labelled them. So we've got Speckled Egg, Victorian Velvet and Faded Lilac in this section. And so on and so forth. So Blueprint Sketch, Squeeze Lemonade and Fossilised Amber. And I got rather carried away with this colour combination, I have to say. So you'll see there's lots of this one. Okay. So moving on to today's. I've started off with a piece of stamping cards. This is a 12 by 12 square. Onto that I stamped with white acrylic paint. So the way to do that is to put some white paint onto a palette, brayer it. So you can see I've got this lovely little brayer, handy for that. So then you're going to get it so that it gets to that sticky stage, so you want to hear that. And at that point, you can go to your stamp and then put your stamp with the paint and the brayer. When we do that, it's going to have a form of resist. So, if you look really closely at this background, you can see that this bit here was part of the original stamping before any colour was applied. So you can see it still picks up where we stencil over the top, but it's going to resist your sprays. Okay. This next section was applied over the top of the spraying. So you can see it started to pull some of that colour through, because remember your sprays are still water reactive, so if you put wet stuff on top, it's going to pull that colour up. Okay. And then this bit was applied really thickly through one of Pete's stencils. So this is the Swirly stencil from Artisan Designs. And then I've used that same stencil, finally using a blending brush and the same colours of ink, so that we know that we're staying within that same colour family. So the sprays I used were the Butterscotch Adirondack, which is closest as I can get to the wild honey that I want to use in this section. Kitsch Flamingo Distress and Distress Oxide sprays, both for good measure. Then I used two Pretty Gets Gritty sprays, so that's Blushed Dreams and Transparent Twilight. Okay, so by using those colours, we're staying in that same family. So that Transparent Twilight's a really good match for Speckled Egg. The Blush Dreams is a really good match for your Kitsch Flamingo, but it adds that touch of sparkle. So if you want something that is using Kitsch Flamingo but you want to add a sparkle to it, that is more or less a perfect match. Okay, so because I want to go and put this into my journal after, what I usually do is I will grab a page out of here to use as a template. So let's go for... Now, if anybody's wondering what I've done to my finger, I have a tiny paper cut, but because I know I'm going to get inky, I'm being sensible and keeping it covered. And it is tiny, it's so tiny I can't even see it, but it's sore. So I know it's there. Okay, next I want to do is to decide which bit of this I want to use in which orientation. So usually out of a sheet like this I'll get a good 2 to 3 pages. I don't always use it neat, so to speak. So I might not go for the entire length. So this one here I think would look quite good if it was cropped like that. So what I'll do is, because we want to make sure that we get both holes into that piece, I'm going to move it across to there. I'm going to grab a pencil like so, and that's going to give us a guide for where we're going to pop our holes in. Then we can trim it up as usual. So at this point you want to decide whether you want to do a full cut down here and cut into this bit, or if you want to go across that way and cut into that bit, or we can try and stop our cut when we get to where we want to cut it horizontally, if that makes sense, so that we're taking a chunk out of our page. So I'm going to go about there. So I've moved my blade level with this bit here where I want to cut. Then I press down and move it along. So if you're doing this with a guillotine, it's kind of not really an option, but for trimmers like this, you have that option. So I'm going to do the same this way, and this time we've got a bit of a line to guide us as to where to lift off. No chances are you haven't quite, but that's okay, because we can just snip that with a pair of scissors. There we go. So there's our first piece. my piece of card back in and work out which way I want to work with my card next. See, we could go that way, or we could crop it this way, which I think on that one you can't see the numbers as much, so I think I'm going to go that way. So this time I'm going to mark my holes. Sometimes it's easier to do it with scissors, sometimes it's easier to do with a trimmer, depending on your layout. So I think just for speed today, I'm going to go for scissors. Yeah, it did turn out really well actually. I was quite chuffed with the amount of colour blends that we got. I did get very inky though. So hence I'm being sensible and putting a plaster on today, because yesterday I got absolutely covered, as Mum would tell you. Okay, so to do our holes we can use a crocodile, paper punch. I'm going to do that first before I do anything else. That way we don't lose our reference point. Like so. So we know that this piece of paper is slightly shorter than our original, but that does mean that we could add on a tab to this page, which I think is what I'm going to do. So to do that, I'm going to cut a little strip of this one here, because I quite like that little border feature. And that was done using the little grid stencil that I'll show you in a minute. Cut that like so. Just trim it up where it's got a bit of a rough edge. Really do need to get a new blade for my trimmer. Okay. So, always down the bottom of my desk I have my 123 punch board. And I find it really useful for quickly creating tabs. So, if I take all these bits out of here, whereas it's just falling off the desk, there we go. I'm going to pop in my piece of card, decide which way you want your tab to go. So I want my tab to be on this edge here, so I'm going to slide that in, and I'm going to go slightly over the centre line, and I'm going to try and match that amount this side, like so. Okay. So you can see we're starting to get that tab shape. Then all we need to do is just trim up. So if you have lots of time on your hands, unlike me that's trying to get this, you know, done on stream, then you can use a metal edge ruler and a knife to make sure that you get this perfectly straight. But as I'm live, I'm just going to do it with scissors. Morning, Sarah Lowe. Okay, so there's our tab. Now bear in mind where you want it to sit with your folder. I'm going to go down towards the bottom, and I want it to actually stick out a little bit. So if we bring in our original sheet, we can see that most of our page is going to line up to this line here. So we can actually take that tab and line it up like so. Let's grab some double-sided tape. It is an ideal guide for colour combos because what I've tried to do is do as many different blending techniques as possible. So, whether that's with the brushes, jelly, or actually the spice of life and all that. And even I went so far as to doing like the coloured pencils, because sometimes you just need that quick reference as to what colour pencil matches that particular blend pattern. Okay, just to finish that off, I'm just going to pop a little bit of wet glue, and that's just going to hold that tab long term, because double-sided tape doesn't always last. So if we go belt and braces, especially means it's something that you're going to be flicking through. And hi Emma, if I haven't said hi already. There we go. So next I want to actually start to work into our pages a little bit so that we can use some of those techniques. So my stamps here are unmounted, so I can use the same glue tabs as yesterday. And I think that one will go really nice just there. Let's grab my stamp block. It's amazing how often the glue tabs end up in exactly the same place. Okay. So just because these don't want to come off today, I'll do it this way. There we go. 1, 2, and 3. So the glue tabs are just retired Xyron ones, so whatever you have to hand. Press that down well. Now your ink pad of choice may change according to what you're stamping onto. So I'm going to go for as close as I can get with some Memento, I think, because it's going to be going over that acrylic stamping a little. So just to try and stick in that same colour combo, I'm going to go to Peanut Brittle. This may end up being slightly darker than Wild Honey, but at least then I'll know it's something different. And move my card out from underneath so we've got a nice flat surface. And there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my messy mat . I'm going to grab my colour combo. So in this case it's oxides. So I'm working with Wild Honey, speckled egg. And kitsch flamingo. And I'm just going to grab a water brush. I'm going to start off with the wild honey, which was one of my birthday presents. So it's a nice new colour for me to play with. Okay, now if I move that over to one side so you can see that a little bit better, and let's zoom in just a little bit more, bring it down. There we go. And I'm going to start off by blending it through the leaves, like so. So we already have quite a bit of yellow underneath, but you're going to see it more on those areas that have more of a pink or blue tinge. So being oxide, you'll get the kind of oxidized finish with your watercolour. Something to bear in mind. And also in terms of your brush, make sure that you clean it out really well when you finish your session. Okay. So think of this as like a little base coat. Then when we come in with the speckled egg, you're going to get a bit more blending. So now I'm going to move to one corner of my speckled egg, just because I've still got that yellow in my brush, and we're going to get a bit more of a greeny tinge. And I can dot that in towards the centre of our leaves. So again, remember, all the layers underneath are still water reactive apart from the paint. So you are going to pick up some of that colour back through. And there's a little bit just in there that's just hiding, so I'm going to get a bit more of that blue. There we go, and pop that in there. And then do these ones on the inside too, don't forget those. If you do put out too much ink on your palette, don't forget you can also pull a print from your palette too. It's one of the reasons why I like working on a messy mat. Okay. So now I'm going to go to my pink. So just give my brush a quick clean out. So I'm just squeeze some clean water through it until it comes out clear. Or as clear as it will be with oxide in the brush. So it kind of gets like this white tinge to it. And then I can pick up some pink. So this is going to be really soft to start with, especially if you've just cleaned out your brush. So then what we'll do is we'll gradually build up that colour. There we go. So bring a bit more of that oxide so it starts to cover up some of that yellow beneath. But this is a great project to do if you are literally just starting out with jelly, or if you have the new gel plates from Chocolate Baroque or gel press, or even if you want to try some acetate printing. Which is something I used to do at college a lot, because you used to get some really interesting effects in the texture that you don't get with jelly. Okay, again, going to clean out my brush. So you want to let that dry before trying to go back into it with pencils or anything like that. So now that we've got that down there, I'm thinking it'd be nice to put something kind of there-ish. But what I might do is actually layer that up on top. So if I go to a spare bit of card, let's try that out. Let's go for this one. So yesterday I was using the fuchsia stamps and I still have some card left over. So what I'm thinking is I might actually use that to my benefit. Bring in a clean messy mat, so the oxides won't hurt on the other one for now, and then we can always come back and dip into those if we need to. And I think I'm going to go for another I was going to go for another Macintosh stamp, but I'm starting to doubt myself. Let's have a look. See what we've got. Let's go for that one. So that's a nice panel anyway, and then it will work as well as a panel in and of itself. I'm going to pop that one there. See if it will still stick. Hopefully it will, without needing any more glue dots. And I'm going to stay with that same Memento ink. One of the things I have tried to do with doing this project is avoid using too much black. So it's literally only really uses black for doing the ink names. So it's very much focusing on the colour blending. I was going to do that. Stuck fine, then no. Go with it. There we go. So it's only done a little double image down the bottom, but that won't hurt. That'll get trimmed off anyway. Okay, so there's my panel. So now I can go back to my main colours. And I can actually go straight in with some of the oxides. So all these techniques that I'm doing at the moment with the oxides you could do if you have the inks instead. You don't have to use the oxides to do the watercolouring. I'm going to pick up some of the wild honey and start to blend that in. There we go, a bit more. Okay, give my brush another little clean. I'm going to go to the pink this time. Now I'm going to follow the shading that's suggested on the stamp to start with, and then I can wash back over that after. Yeah, it's very Art Deco. So when we were teaching it up in Glasgow, we were at a marvellous venue which had lots of Macintosh glasswork, and it's a fantastic venue to go to. I have to say it was probably the most enjoyable teaching that we've ever done, just because the venue was fantastic and we could have sat outside all day if we wanted to. It was that lovely. It would be great to do like a watercolour course there. Maybe when I get famous on Landscape Artist of the Year. Yeah. Not happening. Oh dear. There we go. So let's pop a bit more pink in this bottom section. Okay, so now that we've got most of our darker shading, we can introduce a bit more water and start to blend that out a little bit. Like so. Now these are better left to air dry wherever possible, but if you are pushed for time you can always give it a quick blast with a they are still planning on filming it this year. They're currently accepting entries. It's more so because I wouldn't have the guts to enter. Okay, so now I'm going with the pink still in my brush. I'm going to another corner of our speckled egg so that we're getting that kind of lilac-y tone. Need a little bit more pink in that, but we can come back and add that. And I want to go down these little side panels here. So pick up a little bit more of that pink. As a watercolouring medium, the inks are very forgiving. Okay, I'm going to do the same over here with this random little square. And the same down here with this panel. Now I'm going to go to the blue. And go all the way across this bottom section. But I'll have to see if I can find the photos from the Glasgow venue. Gone back to the pink to get a pop of pink in there, so then we're balancing that kind of diagonal of pink, and then go up here. Need a little bit more pink than that. Starting to get too blue. There we go. And back to the blue for this little crossbar. Have you tried to do a watercolour landscape from the inks? Small ones. So mainly if I've done like a stamped image and gone that way, I haven't really gone into doing it freehand. There's a challenge. I might try that next week. Although that said, I have something in mind for next week that I think you're going to really enjoy. So we're going for a full week project, and you're going to be creating stencils, digital stamps. Yes, I have been watching Draws Off as well. Because back in the day, you know, we used to have to do life art classes, which I always found highly amusing because, you know, we were supposedly training to be graphic designers, and you'd end up going off to do life art instead. And at the time, it was the commonly assumed myth of you don't need to draw to do graphic design. And that was before even computers really became mainstream. And I'm sure, you know, our predecessors would have really frowned upon that one. Okay, I'm just going to drop in a little bit of the off-white just to balance that there. Okay. So again, I won't waste the card because we can still go back into some ink blending effects if we want to. So I'm going to try and snip that as close as possible. So what you would do at this point is you wait until it's totally dry before you do anything else to it. Ideally. But what I'm going to do is just grab and have the ink in the flamingo rather than the oxide this time. Because if we did this next step with oxide, all you're going to do is just smudge everything away and you won't really be able to see it. Whereas the ink is translucent. I'm just going to tap that out onto my messy mat so it's not going to be too overwhelming. I'm just going to go round the edge. So it is really just a hint, just to soften that edge. And then we're showing yet another blending technique that we can do with our inks. So we're showing how it blends onto white card rather than coloured card, which is what we've done in our background. So the goal of the project is basically to think of as many different ways that you can use your inks, your sprays, and even things like your distress paint. So there's our little watercolour. The other thing to note is I do keep separate blending brushes for oxides to inks so that you're not cross-contaminating. So let me zoom back out a bit, just so you can see a bit more of the desk then. Sorry if that just made anybody troubles it. Okay, I'm going to bring this piece back in. And I can pop that up there so that we've got a little pop of something that is in the foreground, and then we've got this kind of ghosting image in the background. So there's lots of different ways that we can work with our stamps. Okay, so I'm going to grab, let's go for a little bit of double-sided tape for this one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to leave it so that I can tuck bits behind it if I want to. Because I'm thinking it would be nice to do almost like colour swatch for each colour. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to flip this over, and obviously at the moment it doesn't look very pretty. So if we go back to our waist, we can actually start to cover this up so that we actually start to build another page onto the back. Now obviously if we put our paper here, we have a chunk missing here. So what we need to start doing is actually thinking, how can we best use that to cover the space? So for example, if we go this way around, we're not too far out this way, so you might want to just chop that up there and then do something else down here. Or we could go this way and cover most of this space, but then we've still got this square down here, which would probably fit better in terms of what we have left over. So I'm going to go that way. So even though my numbers are going to be sideways, that's okay. I'll work over the top of it so that it looks like it's just the texture in the background. Okay. So I'm going to line this up to this top corner. And along that edge there. And then we're going to use our pencil to draw around where we need to cut. So we need to cut down this length here. We need to pop a hole in there. And we need to cut that section off there. Okay. So can everybody hear me okay? Let's bring in the big scissors. There's one piece. Now, even with the little thin strips, sometimes I use them as like little borders. So I don't have a tendency to throw any of these away. Hole punch just to do that little hole like so. Now I'm going to need some glue and I'm going to need a brayer. So make sure that your brayer is nice and clean for this one so you don't ruin all your hard work, because there's nothing worse than just catching a dirty edge and having it roll across your work. So I'm going to apply my glue onto my piece rather than the page. And go down the edge. Get your page. We're going to line it up. Get it just right. So that's why we use wet glue, so that we can move it if we need to. Then brayer it down. So I've started putting some of these layouts up on Pinterest. It's like long pins. So there's one per colour blend. So if you're into Pinterest, you can find us on there. Okay, now for the next bit, because we need to cover that up, so I'm going to use this piece. So I've just got to decide which way I want that to go. I think I might go that way. If you need to, just give it a quick little trim so it's got a nice neat edge to work with. So, line it up and then brayer it on. So anyway, where it's lifting slightly, just get the nozzle of your glue underneath and just put a little bit in and hold it there. I try to avoid too much seeping glue just because it will act as a resist if you then work back over the top. But if that's the look that you're going for, you could do that. Or gel medium. If you go back on our videos, we did a week of mixed media where we went into the different mediums and how they react to colour, inks, lots of fun bits. Okay, so that's our first page, and now onto this page. I'm thinking I might do a drawing. So rather than take up the rest of your day, I'm going to call it a day here, and then like yesterday I will put up a photograph with the finished piece later. So take care for now, and I will see you tomorrow for a little bit of digital fun. So take care and bye.